Hello, everyone. Lisa Starr back with yet another episode of Starrcast. We are in the fall of 2025, and one of the hottest topics we are seeing is wellness retreats. Why? Because everyone wants wellness, and you can't get enough in just visiting a spa for a few hours. You need to go for longer. So we are seeing a huge expansion in the wellness retreat business, whether it's for a weekend, multiple days, multiple weeks. So I've invited here today two old friends who have more years in wellness than I do, actually. And they have just started a wellness retreat. So we're going to speak about that whole process and also their journey in the world of wellness. So I'm really happy to welcome Sallie Fraenkel, who is the president of Mind, Body, Spirit Network, Wendy Bosalavage, the president of the Wellbeing Collective, and together they are the co-founders of Redbird House. I'm sorry, it's the Being Well Collective, Wendy, right? Sorry. So welcome to you both. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Lisa. It's great to be with you. And this is so much fun. And I'm going to say that I'm not sure it's true that you've been in the wellness world fewer years than me, but we'll have to get into that detail later.
I think between us, we have about 100 or maybe more. Let's see.
Oh my gosh.
It's getting scary. Sallie, let's start with you and your journey on the wellness path. Was this what you intended to do with your career?
Well, no, actually, I actually had a first career in the entertainment industry. But I was very passionate about spas, and I actually entered the spa industry in 2004 when I went to work for Spa Finder. And honestly, at that point in time, I would tell you, I probably didn't even know what a retreat was. I had never been on one, although I had been to places like Canyon Ranch. But the idea of a wellness retreat, both in the use of that term, Lisa, as a physical place or a program that one goes on, a retreat, I had no idea what it even was.
And here you are. So when you went to work for Spa Finder, Sallie, that was in marketing. That was your sort of what you did. You were a marketer.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And you learned about the spa industry and you said, this is pretty fun, better than the entertainment industry.
Well, it's funny because I did have what I would say was a sexy job in the entertainment industry. I was going to film festivals and, working with producers and actors and all of this kind of stuff. And it was great, but it wasn't my deep passion the way spa and wellness really was. And truly the idea of the mind body connection and leading a balanced life. So, what really became very exciting for me when I worked with Spa Finder was the opportunity to visit, destination spas and wellness resorts all over the world. And that still is my deep passion, a passion for wellness, travel, and tourism. Well, I do a few things under Mind, Body, Spirit Network. I do networking events around spa, wellness, food, beauty, and travel. And as Wendy knows, one of our shared passions is making meaningful connections for and with people. So I do that, and I've done about 55 of those events with lots of different places. And I consult. So I work with properties such as the Retreat Costa Rica. I've done work with Preferred Hotels, Le Monastère des Augustines, Canyon Ranch, a bunch of different beautiful places, Rancho La Puerta. I work with some wellness goods and services. And for a period of time, funnily enough, I was a private tour operator. I didn't even know that's what I was, but someone told me that's what I was because I was creating these curated wellness journeys and bringing groups, whether it be industry insiders through the Global Wellness Summit or regular travelers, through, just taking groups to various places. So I did that actually for a while. I'm not currently doing that because as you'll hear, from Wendy and I, we're now built a place and we're doing our own retreat. So there is only so many things, that I can do.
So, 42 years ago, which seems like just a blink, I was asked to come join American Leisure to be a director of a corporate wellness center, fitness center. And I left a career in fashion because my passion was fashion, and I went to FIT. So I said to Steve Cass, I know nothing about fitness. And he said to me, all you need to have is common sense. So I knew I had common sense, and that was the journey. And I started from the ground up, literally, because I was in charge of the built environment then, which we'll talk about later with Redbird House and how that skill set led to I think, Sallie approaching me about Redbird House. So many years ago, I went to an URSA conference, and this guy, Francis Acunzo, was on stage, and he spoke about spas. And I turned to Steve and I said, we're getting into the spa business, because it appealed to me. Because many years ago, Steve's wife, who was my aunt who had passed away, had taken me to Red Door when I was 19 years old. And I'll never forget the Swiss shower. And there was just something about the environment. Like, I loved it. I loved taking care of myself because it made me feel great afterwards. So for many years, as you might know, I became a partner in American Leisure and really focused on new business development and running our consulting division, where I worked with the developers and the architects and the team for the whole built environment, and then very heavily into operations. And then for 10 years, I sat on the board of Glen Ivy Hot Springs Spa. And that's where I attended my first retreats. And looking back, I didn't even realize what it was, but we always went to a wellness resort and we talked about strategy and all that as far as, the academic piece of the retreat. But then we always had time to indulge in massages and things like that. Yeah. So that's 42 years.
Interesting thing is we didn't even call those things retreats. We did them at Spa Finder all the time. We called them corporate meetings. Now, I think that might have been a reason. There might have been a reason for why we called them corporate meetings. But, it is funny to think, because when you say that, Wendy, I remember we went to Lodge at Woodlock and we went to Mayflower Inn, the Spa Finder leadership team. But they never called it a retreat. So I think that kind of the use of the term retreat, and having worked with Susie Ellis so closely, and she is a person who has defined a lot of the terminology that we use out there. It was similar to how, the word wellness wasn't even being used before 2008. So these terms, while retreats existed, to my mind, people were going on silent meditation retreats or spiritual retreats. It really wasn't used at nearly as widely, I think, for what we did in the corporate world, where we sat in rooms and did strategy, but we also had spa treatments and we went hiking and all of that. It wasn't, but now I think the retreat definition has really expanded.
Well,
So true, Sallie. I wonder how it happened. Like, how did the word retreat start to get used with wellness? Do we know?
I can't pinpoint it the way that I could pinpoint the use of the term wellness, because actually Susie and the Global Wellness Summit and Spa Finder studied that and created documents around it with all sorts of research. But I could guess, and I think while the word retreat has been around a very long time, like a lot of other terms, it's can be confusing. Because I said before, the term retreat can be a physical space. There are retreat centers, and there are many, many retreat centers that have been around, like, right, Wendy, like Kripalu or Omega, which you just went to. I think there's, used to actually be an organization of holistic retreat centers, and I did some work with them. I'm not sure if they're still around, but I learned that there was a retreat center in Scotland called Finhorn, and all of these other kind of well-known retreat centers. Then what happened is there's always been people who create retreats. So I'm trying to think of someone, Deepak Chopra, for example. He's been doing retreats for a while. I can't tell you exactly when, but this idea of expanding, I think that the term retreat and how it's being used, I think really started to happen during COVID.
So I just need to add, you probably don't know this, but Glen Ivy, and it was in 2021 that I joined the board.
No, 2021.
2001.
I was going to say, I don't think so, Wendy. This is how well Wendy and I work together. I know her bio better than she does.
I was trying to remember. 9/11 was 20. Yeah. So yes, because that's when I met
John Gray. 2001. Yeah.
So I met John Gray and the team at the Specifically conference. I don't know if you remember that. At Specifically, it was 9/11. I got to meet John Gray because I had a meeting set up with Maureen Fletcher at 9/11 at 11 o'clock. And I saved my date book that has that in there. Glen Ivy was owned by a church. So it was a retreat center. So up on the hill was the retreat center. So when we went on these retreats, they called them retreats, and I never really understood it. But now as we're talking about it, I'm connecting the dots.
Well, that makes sense because they actually had, there were designated, and they still are designated retreat centers. Yes. So that's kind of an important, and it's something that in the spa industry isn't quite as well known as it is now, more in the wellness travel industry and in some of the things that Wendy and I are involved in, like such as Synergy, the retreat show. Yeah.
So how did you two meet each other?
This is
So,
more.
so you remember Cornelia Day Spa? Okay, so I was at Cornelia for an event, and
You
I
remember
met.
what the event was?
No, I don't remember.
It was
Sally
the
is my memory.
Spa Readers' Choice
Yeah,
Awards. Yeah.
I was there,
And I
and
bet you, Lisa, you might have been there
I
too.
might have been there too.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I
It was a
was.
big
Uh,
fancy night. Yeah. At
and I went
Cornelia.
to the ladies' room, and Sally was in the ladies' room, and I came out, and I had seen Sally around, and I was very bold, and I went up to her, and I said, we really need to know each other. We need to get to know each other. And I think she was a little startled, but she said, okay. And then the next week, I think we met for lunch at La Pan
We did.
Quotidian. Yeah.
We did. Yeah, that's absolutely all true. I was really like, taken aback, but you know what? It was so auspicious. And what's very interesting is that I think, Wendy, that probably was around 2005 or six, because I came to Spa Finder 2004. And what's interesting is Wendy and I knew each other then. We went and had that lunch, but we really didn't become what I call LILBFs really until it's hard to pinpoint the exact timing, but I'm going to say around, 2014, 15. So it's really more like the last, 10, 11
Mhm.
years. Although, we did travel together in 2013 after the Global Wellness Summit when we did our Ayurvedic trip with 25 people post GWS. And that was, I think, our first travel experience.
I think it was. And by the way, what that stands for is late in life best friends. So that's what we call it.
oh, okay. I
Yes.
was out of the loop on the acronym.
Yeah, so
Thank you
when that
for
hits the Oxford Dictionary LILBF, you'll know it was
what
coined.
it means. So, flash forward to today. You are both in different jobs in wellness, but you're LILBFs. And where did the idea to create a wellness retreat together come from? How did that start?
Okay, well, why don't we do this as an interactive story? I will start it because it really did start with me and my husband.
Did.
Okay. And then I will turn it over to Wendy because that's how the story became the story of the two of us in addition. So my husband Michael and I in the year 2007 went to a Bob Dylan concert at the Bethel Woods Performing Arts Center, which is in the Southern Catskills. And it happens to be the Bethel Woods Performing Arts Center was built on the site of the Woodstock Music Festival. So it's Yasgur's farm and it's in Bethel, New York. And most people think Woodstock was actually in Woodstock, New York. It was not. So we went to this Bob Dylan concert and there was a little pop-up tent and we went to talk to the people. They were selling land nearby. It was a new development. And, my husband was like, oh, let's go look at the land. And the next day we did, and we bought 7 acres of land in Bethel, New York.
It was prescient of you.
Well, I don't know if it was prescient because, we had relatively youngish children then. I mean, not, babies, but we bought the land. We thought it'd be a good investment. And then 2008 happened. So it really turned out to be like a little, I won't say a disaster because we were certainly we were conservative about what our decisions, but the developer, so we bought this 7 acres that was in a development that was supposed to be 23, homes or structures being built. And the developer abandoned the project and only one house got built there. So every year, Michael and I would go visit the property and drive, like it was
Look at our
overgrown.
property.
It was overgrown, like with weeds that were like 6 feet tall, and they would bushwhack the property, and we would look at it, and we held on to it all this time, and then COVID happened. And Michael and I had actually talked about selling the property and what to do with it. And during COVID, when we were together a lot, because I wasn't traveling at all, we were sitting around and just with each other quite a lot. We just started dreaming and we said, maybe we should build an Airbnb. We thought maybe we should build a couple of houses. We'll give our children, each of them a little tiny place and we'll have a place, a family compound. And then in talking about all this to explain this, Wendy and I had been sharing an apartment that I had in New York City that we had become roommates. And one of the important plot points in the story was we gave up the apartment in early COVID because it came up, the rent renewal came up, and it made no sense to keep a New York City apartment that really was not going to be used. So I was pining away over the loss of that apartment because I so enjoyed spending a couple of nights a week there with Wendy, and Michael said to me, let's build. So after all of this, he's like, maybe we should just build a wellness house and we should invite Wendy in. And I was like, wow. And then we called Wendy. And Wendy, if you want to take it from there as to what happened from that point on, if you
So,
remember.
yeah, I remember. I don't remember everything. That's why I have Sallie. But she called me up and she said, "Do you want to build a wellness house on this land that we have?" And looking back, I usually always say yes to Sallie because it always winds up working out. So I go, okay, let's talk about it. All right, why not? We'll build this house. And my partner, Adam, I went to him. I said, would you be interested? He said, let's investigate. We went up. It was COVID. We were wearing masks. We went to a log cabin builder. And
no, but first, remember we met on
we
our
had
sun
fun.
porch and we each sat in a corner. It was the
Yes.
funniest thing, Lisa. We were each on a corner, 4 corners, talking like, with, should we build this house?
And we had wine and pizza, that I
The
remember.
best pizza ever. The best
Right?
pizza.
And
Sealed the deal.
And we
Yep.
said, okay, so let's start the process. Let's look for a builder. And we went and we looked at these log cabins, which were just beautiful, but the prices were exorbitant because, the supply chain was tight and all of that. So then we got on a phone call with Sallie, said, oh, the property manager's husband is a builder. Remember that, Susan? We got on the phone
Oh,
with
Michael said that. Yes, we were
Right, yeah,
talking.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes, we were talking to him.
And we're texting, so we're all on Zoom, and the guy starts
We're
talking.
all in 3 different locations because you were, I guess, at home. Michael was at home, and I was actually in Florida visiting my dad. So we were doing like a back channel texting, weren't we? Yeah.
Yes, we were. And after I heard this gentleman speak, I texted Sally. I said, he's not building our house, but they dropped a name of somebody who was building possibly on their property of a spec house. Don't you remember? And she said something about this guy, Josh, and she says his name, Josh Gelb. And we hang up. I text Sally or called her and I said, Sally, I think I know Josh Gelb. He's building these things called Neville House. So they mentioned Neville House. So I called Josh. I hadn't spoken to him. I worked with him when he was with Toll Brothers many years ago. And I said, hi, Josh, it's Wendy Bosalavage. How are you? I said, by any chance, do you know anything about Neville House? And he goes, I am Neville House. So Neville House wound up being our builder. And the rest is history, I would think.
Well,
and there are several Neville houses. So it's a style. And the architect, interestingly enough, was Inc., who I happened to meet at the last Global Wellness Summit cocktail party for the real estate event. And it was really funny. I'll just tell you quickly. I was standing with Susie because I was one of the first to arrive. And then like everyone starts congregating in the lobby and chatting. And this one guy is standing by himself. And I felt really bad. So I went over and I introduced myself to him. I said, hi, I'm Wendy Bosalavage. And he goes, oh, I'm Andrew from Inc. And then I said, from Inc. I said, I just did a Neville House, and he goes, are you Redbird House? So it was so funny. We had never met him. And then Sally got introduced to him and we built Neville House. We built Redbird House.
Yes. So we started building in 2021, Lisa, like literally kind of somewhat early COVID days, maybe early 2022, maybe is when we broke ground. Because I think we did all the paperwork in 2021 and we opened in 2023.
So how did you decide, like, okay, what shall we make? How big shall it be? What the components will be in it? I mean, a wellness retreat could be anything. Like, how did you hone that thinking?
Well, Neville House, what they are is it's a style of house, and they had a number of different plans. Okay, so what we decided to do was we actually built what they called a Neville House XL, extra large. So that was already an existing floor plan. But what was different about us is the way our property goes, it slopes down, so we could have a third level, which really is actually an above ground basement, if you will. It is not a basement, it is our wellness level. So because of the lay of our land, we were able to site our house so that we could have a 3-story Neville house. And quite frankly, I am not sure that there are any other Neville houses out there that have 3 stories that are the size of ours. And we are the only one that is red. Our house is literally red, and the rest of the Neville houses are black because they're
Well,
modeled after a style of Norwegian farmhouse. So that's really the inspiration.
Where
well,
did you come up
and
with
wait,
the name for Redbird House? Like,
well,
what was the
before Sally,
inspiration for that?
yeah, before Sally tells you that, I will tell you this. They gave us such pushback. They said, we are not doing a red house. And we kept pushing back and pushing back. And Sally will tell you why Redbird House and why it all makes sense. And finally, they agreed, they acquiesced. And then afterwards, they're like, oh, we're going to make this an option now. I'm like, we're like,
Well, you
really?
won a
I don't think anyone
commission.
else has chosen it but us, I'm hoping. But anyway, the story of the Redbird is a long one, but I'm going to try to make it very short. When I was going through a very difficult time in my career, and I'm not even going to give you the dates or any of that because I would rather just keep a lot of that. We'll tell you that over a glass of wine someday. I was going through some difficult times in my career. I was at a conference with a friend. That friend, we were going for a walk outside in nature, and a red bird landed on a bush. She says to me, oh, wow, do you know the significance of that? I looked at her like she had grown a second head. She told me the story of the red bird. She happens to know Chinese mythology and feng shui very well. It really stuck in my head. This was probably 19 years ago. Then, like many things, when something sticks in your head, it comes back in your life in many different ways. And there's so many ways that I can't even tell you them all. But what I will tell you is that was where the red bird first entered into my life. And what became significant that relates to Redbird House and me and Wendy has to do with the twinsy scarves we're wearing. And I'll let her tell the story. But what I will tell you is when this came into being was a day when I was having lunch with Wendy, and I was then working for the Global Wellness Summit. And I had decided it was really time for me to carry the metaphor and really take flight and do my own thing. And I had never had my own business. And I decided to confide in Wendy at a lunch and tell her that I was going to start a new business. And what I told her was the business I was going to start was going to be Mind, Body, Spirit Network. And I'm pretty sure, and I went and pulled this out for this podcast, that I showed Wendy my business card. And it's very hard to see, but my initial business
We
card,
did see Sally.
yes, it had
Yeah.
the red. Do you remember this? And it had a red bird on it. This was painted by my daughter, who's an artist. So I decided these are no longer my cards. These were my cards 11 years ago. Decided to have the red bird as my logo. At which point I hand my card to Wendy, and she's like, go ahead, Wendy, will you take the story?
So, Lisa, I was wearing this scarf that's all red birds that I had gotten. I had gotten it on Catalina Island because I think you might know that I did the spa on Catalina Island. We managed the spa. And I was like, you have to have this scarf. So I gave her the scarf,
Took it
not
off
knowing.
her neck and gave
Right.
it to me.
I gave it to her. There were two things that happened. And then she tells me she's starting this Mind, Body, Spirit Network. It's a membership. And I took out my checkbook because back then we wrote checks. There was no Zelle and there was no Venmo. And I wrote her a check and I was the first member. But then what really happened, which was so auspicious, we asked if, I don't know if we asked to take a picture. All of a sudden, we were sitting in a restaurant and there was a fake green wall right behind me. And on top of my head was a red bird.
A picture of it.
We
So
have
by the way, if someday if I get organized, I'm going to pull together all these elements because more time goes on, the more redbird coincidences happen, which is how these things happen. It's when it gets into your line of sight that all of a sudden you start to see it and it appears everywhere. But there are so many redbird points along the story. So when Wendy and Michael and Adam and I were sitting on our sun porch in COVID, each in our own corners talking about building this wellness house, I said, and we need to call it Redbird House. And what's really funny is not a single one of you said anything like that is crazy. Like when I think back now, I think we were just also in our, I don't know, in like that COVID weird
COVID
phase,
haze.
COVID haze. And everybody's like, oh yeah, like, okay, like no one said that's a crazy name. Like, okay. And so it was in Redbird House.
was.
Yeah, so it was.
So it opened in 2023, you said?
Yes, it did.
How do you begin? Like you've built this new thing and it's a retreat. You're sort of at the forefront of wellness retreats being something. I mean, how did you decide to approach the marketing? Like, did you have your own retreats? Do you bring in other people? What's the process?
Um, Sally, you want me to take that?
You could start and then throw it to me when you're ready. We'll do that like,
Okay, so that sounds good. So, the house gets built. I want you to know that Sally and I went up there. We had to like mark every tree that had to come down. This was really a process. We have pictures of us standing in the pit. We threw crystals in the pit. We made prayers in the pit. I mean, we did the whole
we
shebang.
have it. Yeah, we
Yeah.
did.
And we memorialized it all with photos. So once the house was built, I have to give this to Sally. I think it was Sally's idea about the retreats because I don't remember talking about it before. Originally, we were just building as an Airbnb, and then we thought we would use it personally, with our families a couple of weeks out of the year.
That's
And
true.
Sally came to me and said, "You want to do retreats?" I was like, "Whatever." I always say yes because it always has a great output. Like, okay. So then I like really started getting nervous because then we had to do it. So like, oh my, like, the food and the first one was 3 nights and it was lots of meals. And I was really nervous.
So was
Sally's
I.
forte is marketing and she's much more tech savvy than I am. So she said, I'll do the back end and all of that. You take care of the logistics of the food and like getting the house prepared and all of that. And we actually brought someone in to facilitate because we weren't really ready to facilitate. So we brought in this woman, Arancis, and she did a lot of the facilitation. And then, after the first retreat, which was breathing a sigh of relief that it went incredibly well, Sally turned to me and she said, "I'm not really happy." Because I want to do the facilitation. The women were thrilled. It went so well. And I did all of the meal prep and the buying and all that. I was so anxious for like weeks, till we got up to it. But Sally, now I'll turn it over to you because you can talk about how we got into doing our own facilitations.
Yeah. So, for me, this was sort of having done being a private tour operator for a period of time and curating lots of trips. I really loved the creative process. I had already done, oh my God, I don't even know, maybe 10, no, more than that, like 15 or 20 different curated wellness trips that had themes, that had agendas, that had all sorts of, activities, if you will, itineraries. And in a way, while I wasn't facilitating the way I do now, I was certainly hosting and holding space and bringing people together. So what I knew, as Wendy said, it was the first retreat that Wendy and I did together. I did a practice retreat, and this is kind of where the retreats came out of, is that, I don't know if you remember, Lisa, maybe you went to the Global Wellness Summit that was in Singapore in 2019. They had brought in a woman who played the gong by the name of
Oh, I
Martha.
remember her.
Okay.
That was amazing.
Yes. So Martha and I, so the genesis of the retreat situation was Martha and I kind of bonded, and I stayed in touch. And this is what I do with my events. I say to people that I like, "Hey, if you're ever in New York," and Martha lives in Hong Kong, "if you're ever in New York, let me know. I'll build an event around you." Well, Martha took me up on that. And the last event I did before COVID hit was an event in January 2020 with Martha Collard. And it was a very well attended event. And as you witnessed and Wendy did with her, she's really gifted. And a strange thing happened that night. A woman came up to me that I knew and said, "Listen, she was so incredible. I want you to do a retreat with her, and I'm going to give you my house in the Hamptons to use."
Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, okay, sure. So my friend Jay Smith, who Wendy also knows, who had done leadership type retreats, we decided, and we both knew this woman, we decided we would work together with Martha and we would do a retreat with Martha. And I called it my practice retreat because by that point in time, we were already building Redbird House. And so we had Martha come from Hong Kong, much like the first retreat Wendy and I did. Martha did all the facilitation and programming. I did the marketing and business development, and Jay did the logistics. making sure, the meals, working with the chef, making sure the house was set up. So that was the first experience I had. And then I said to Wendy, we're going to do our own. And that's when Wendy and I did our first one in June of 2023. But again, neither one of us, I didn't even have the confidence at that point to step into the facilitation role. And so that's really been part of the growth. And even to this day, with all the training I've done and all the things I've done, I still get very, very nervous about the idea of facilitating, but I love it. But it really does stretch me in terms of, the fear factor.
Sallie, the idea of you being nervous and not confident is very humorous, but
Oh.
thank you for sharing that with us.
Lisa, everybody says that to me, but I feel like if you could go inside my head and see what was going on in there, if you ever saw that movie Inside Out, my head is like filled with like, you can't do this, you are going to fail, it's got like a million of these voices. And I think that's partially why I'm drawn to doing retreats, is because I think when I'm very honest about, how I feel and all of my foibles in life and all of my personal growth, and that for me really fuels my love of the retreats, because I just want to be who I really am and belong and be accepted. And I want to help other people be who they really are and feel like they belong and be accepted. So it's kind of deeply personal.
Well, it's a really fascinating story about the house and how it came to be and the name. But of course, the structure doesn't make the retreat, right? So it's what happens in the programming. So let's talk about how you decide, like a theme or an approach, or is there anything unique about Redbird's overall approach? How do you as marketers decide what to offer?
Well, Sallie and I usually come together. We decide right after the retreat ends, because we're doing our 6th retreat in November, and we're sold out usually. So I think like it ends on November 16th, and by November 17th, Sallie's like, okay, we have to start working on the theme for the next one. I'm like, Sallie, let's take a breath here.
He is so kind and patient, and honestly, I can't say enough things about how extraordinary Wendy is for a personality type like me. She is the mutable heir to my fixed and cardinal heir, and for anyone who's into astrology, they'll know what that ridiculous phrase means. But really, Wendy is so flexible and flies like a bird in many ways. So that, so it's true. The day after the retreat, we've barely like done and dusted, and I'm like, we got to get the next theme, but we've developed a bit of a brand, if you will, a sub brand. So in the spring, early summer, our retreats are called Mind, Body, Spirit Camp. And that was actually Wendy's idea. And that was taking a page from the fact that I already have Mind, Body, Spirit Network, and I have a certain amount of people that have been coming to my events and know about Mind, Body, Spirit Network. So we both loved the idea of Mind, Body, Spirit Camp in the summer. And the winter themes changed. So our first winter theme was the warm heart. The second one was winter wonders. We explored all the idea of wonder. The first one we explored the heart, opening the heart and the heart chakras. This year we're doing autumn illumination, light in the season of gratitude, and we will have a lot of things centered around the idea of color and light.
Yeah, so
again, if you were living in my head, in fact, I have a new idea I'm going to run by Wendy after this call. I spent a very many years thinking I wasn't a very creative person. And the reality is that, I have an artist daughter and an artist sister. In fact, my sister did all the artwork behind me. And I think that for me, coming up theming and coming up with ideas and is part of my creative, I've got a million ideas and themes. And I think one of the things I would love to do out there, if it were ever available to me, would be help other places come up with their themes and really bring them to life in a very authentic and meaningful way. It has to be authentic and meaningful. Otherwise it's cheesy, it's cheesy and it's cringy, So, and Wendy and I do a lot of this. We sit down and we just have a lot of fun with this.
We just sit there and ideate, and then we come up with something, and then, it's like we riff together, and then we just figure it out. And, we've learned along the way, and I think each retreat gets better and better, and we recognize what works and what doesn't. And I know you might ask us what that is, but yeah, and I have to say again, Sallie is incredibly organized and keeps me on task. So we have lots of spreadsheets, and we are really organized. We walk into the retreat and we know we've done the work, and we know that we'll deliver a great experience for everybody that attends.
Helpful to walk in ready, right?
Oh,
Because there's so many pieces to putting
There are.
together this kind of show that if you're worried about the food or the accommodation, then you can't focus on the experience you're delivering.
Exactly.
100%. So when it begins, our focus is being with our guests. Our focus, and Wendy and I have worked through this a lot together. Like, this has been a real journey for us, in terms of making sure that we're present for our guests and supporting each other, because, doing a retreat takes a tremendous amount of energy, physical and emotional energy. And, both Wendy and I are trained coaches of different kinds. I have a coaching certification in coaching for transformation. So I have a life coaching certification. Wendy has a health coaching certification, but I have been trained to help, how to hold space for people. We've both done a lot of facilitation trainings, and I expect to do more. I mean, this is part of my, and I'm guessing if I ask Wendy, if you want to do another training, will you say yes?
Yes, we'll do it.
She says yes
Will you
too.
say yes?
So
I say yes. Yeah, yes.
But I know I'll do more training, because I know that I'm, and I've just started to go to other people's retreats, which is new for me. And I'm not, I will do a little bit more of that to level up. And, quite honestly, being involved with Synergy, the retreat show, has given us both quite a lot of visibility into what's going on globally with retreats. I feel like, I never want to be unhumble, because I really think humility is a very important trait, along with integrity and a lot of other things that I value. But, I feel like, we, like Wendy said, we do the work. We do the work in so many different levels. And I think that is maybe a little bit unique. Not everybody maybe goes, has all the parts that we have on the career side, on the personal side, and all of that. And even just having traveled to so many, having the good fortune to travel so many places and see a lot of things out there, it
Yeah.
helps.
Lisa, you mentioned something about the built environment and how it's really the content. And I always used to say that when I was with Liv, and my last position with Liv was Chief Wellness Officer. Um, so I always say the heart and soul is what happens inside the content. But when we built the house, and we wanted this wellness space, the first level really has, I designed the wellness level, and it includes, like, we have an infrared sauna, we have a salt capsule, we have a Somadome meditation pod, a couples treatment room, we have a yoga studio. I mean, so many wellness touch points. And what we do is we give our guests the opportunity to experience the wellness components of the house. So that really plays very well with when we're designing what the program will be. And I just want to mention that I think the best testimonial of all is when you have and we have a couple of guests who have been 3 times.
Several.
So
Actually,
yeah,
several.
several.
Yeah. I
So,
think that really is a nice, and I noticed that too when I did my wellness journeys. So you create a really amazing, transformational, or at least special experience for someone, and then they do want to come back. So, and I do think it is a combination. The house is very comfortable, and, it's a nice balance of serious, going deep-ish. And I'll say deep-ish because we made a decision together, Wendy and I, and we learned a metaphor of the cappuccino. Some retreats stay at the top, at the foamy level. Some retreats go into the middle level, which is sort of where the coffee is. It's rich and yummy and warm. Some people go down to the bottom where the grounds are, very, very deep. We've made a decision after some, going back and forth, getting to each other's comfort level, because we each, we're different and we like a lot of same things and we like different things, that we decided we'd stay in that middle level. So we do facilitated aspects that do go into some real personal development work, and we have fun. We, at nighttime, we create a slumber party vibe, with do your own, DIY facials and face masks and s'mores and, things that kind of evoke the playful side of us that so many of us have forgotten and don't tap into. So we have a great balance of, real playful and going into that rich, dark coffee.
So once you have this theme, which appears to be working really well, you've got it down now. I mean, how do you get the message out there? What have you found has been your best marketing tool to attract people?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I talk to a lot of people about this. In fact, I think a lot about all the things I want to do is doing more education in the retreat space. And I will say that what Wendy and I have found, so we do send out mass emails. So that's how people, and to some extent, We've actually had some response to that, but not much. We, of course, do social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're not doing TikTok yet because the thought of doing one more thing makes me want to. We don't have a YouTube channel. I think about it a lot, but we do that social media. But, and Wendy and I, of course, go out there. We're out there a lot. Wendy is like walks around with brochures everywhere. She always has a Redbird brochure in her car. But the real way is Wendy and I come up with target lists, and we're very meticulous about our record keeping. And then we personally write to people and invite them. Not necessarily very well. It's not like people we know as in, it is like paying very close attention. I'm not kidding. When Wendy meets someone, we were at a Neil Young concert a week ago in Bethel Woods, Michael, Wendy, and I. Wendy, we weren't sitting together. Me and Michael were in front of Wendy. Wendy turns to the person sitting next to her like, she's talking to her and she's like, oh, and we have this wellness house and you should know about our retreat. Wendy is amazing like that. Right, Wendy? You do this.
I would second that. I can see that of Wendy.
I'm not obnoxious about it, and it has to make some sense.
You're passionate about it. You're like very passionate.
And listen, women are looking for connection. They've been taking care of people their whole lives, and now it's time, I always say, to take care of ourselves. And that's how it starts. And, people want community when everyone's talking about longevity and what are the key points. And one of the biggest things is building community. And that's what we have found that these women want. We had a couple of retreats ago, that the women who met each other at our retreat are now in touch. They've met for lunch. People
they go to the theater together. Yeah. They have a little theater thing going, which
and where Sallie mentioned us, the coffee analogy, but we're not looking to fix anybody. These aren't like heavy duty retreats. We're looking to celebrate and nourish ourselves, and that's what I think we do. We have an amazing chef. We found this chef who is an organic chef. She cooks everything is organic and locally grown, and she grows her own mushrooms, and she does tinctures, and then she does a little talk about her tinctures, and everyone buys the tinctures. And, we really make it, I always say to Sallie, I want everyone to walk away and say they had fun and that they found something in the 48 hours or 72 hours that they really had never tapped into before. And the way we facilitate things, I think that has happened for most of the women that have joined us.
Fun is something that we don't really have much as grown-ups, do we? We don't think about doing something fun or playful. So exploring that seems like a really good opportunity to attract.
Yes.
Ladies.
And we do really, I think that, it's our personalities. I think both Wendy and I complement each other in that way too, in terms of like, where we're each most comfortable. Just really, because it's a process though, Lisa. You're taking people's money and you're taking people's time. And I don't want to underestimate that. I take this very, very seriously that, it's a commitment that they're making to us. So, we really, really, and we also, I think, have very good intuition. So I think we have good intuition about the blend of the playfulness and the fun and the seriousness. People bring themselves with them wherever they go. And, without breaking any confidences, we've had people who've come right after the loss of spouses. We've had people who've come who were involved with serious health issues at the time. We've had people. So, you have to meet people where they are. People say that all the time and it sounds a little cheesy, but I think it isn't. I think that we have that part of delivering a great retreat is also being very tuned in to the people that you're there with, and every single group is different. So it's not like we have a formula.
Right. Let's talk about our last retreat. We had a 35-year-old and a 90-year-old.
95, Wendy.
Oh, she was 90.
Now, Alice was 95 years old. She is 95-year-old. She's still with us. So yeah, 35 to 95. It was really remarkable. Yeah. That's really, and just the fact that the 95-year-old came, she's really a force.
Sallie,
and the 35-year-old.
You touched on something I want to drill down more into, which is value, right? You're providing this great experience and you have the environment. How do you know what to charge? How do you, was there a formula? Like, what do you do?
Well, like anything, first you have to look at your fixed cost. So you can't, if in fact, let's say you want to make a profit, and I would say almost anybody, there are people who do this that don't want to make any profit, but let's assume you want to make a profit. You have to start with what your fixed expenses are. and understand what those are. Then from there, you have some variable expenses. So then you do the expense side first. Then after that, you look at, okay, how much do we really want to make? In the beginning, it wasn't about making very much at all, although Wendy and I have made money on every one of our retreats, and Wendy knows Wendy knows how I am. I like to try to up level it each time, although I'm not sure, we have a lot of discussions around, I'm like, I don't want to pay this much for that. And Wendy's like, come on, let's pay, you could see we're very complementary in terms of our, Wendy's more freeform, I'm more structured, although I don't want to put each one of us in boxes because I hate boxes. But, so we look at the expense side, then we look at how much profit we want to make roughly. And we also, of course, you can't be sure you're going to sell out every retreat. So you need to understand. And there's also, if you're looking at retreats, we're doing it in a space we own. I have done trips at places where I've had to take contracts and be at risk. It's a very different business model. And if I were working with retreat leaders, let's say someone who wants to take a group to Rancho La Puerta, for example, or Canyon Ranch or wherever, it's a very different business model than what we're doing because we own our place.
And you probably look at what other retreats charge per day or night or something.
We did a little bit. We did. I mean, we talked with Jay about what she charged. I mean, I'm aware of what other people charge. We're on I would say, we're not the lowest. I mean, look, here's the other thing, Lisa. We rent our house out to other retreat leaders. That's part of our business model, not just Wendy's and my retreat. We're on Airbnb. So we get a lot of business through Airbnb, and we've cultivated relationships to bring in other retreat leaders to rent our house. So I've looked at what some of them are charging, and many of them are charging less than what we charge. Now, I think that what we charge is 100% a very good value. And I couldn't be marketing it, right, Wendy? You couldn't be selling it. I mean, I believe from the bottom of my heart, we deliver an amazing value for what we charge.
Well, I personalize
judged on your repeat guests, you are. I mean, that's the proof is in the pudding there.
Yeah. And I personalize it, Lisa. I look at it and I try to, sit back for a moment and say, would I pay this? Is the value there? Because I've also gone on other people's retreats and I gauge what we're charging. And we have some tiered pricing because, we have either a double occupancy. Some people want to pay extra for single occupancy. And then we also we rent a house next to our house. For some women want to have their own bathroom. So we're able to accommodate everyone's wishes still, and the price points change. And some people don't even bat an eyelash. They're like, fine, I'll just take, the higher priced one. So I think we've come to a good set point. And, incrementally we might increase it, because costs go up. I mean, food costs compared we all know from 2 years ago till today, and what an egg cost, or, and I always I do all the food shopping because I prepare breakfast every morning and I prepare all of the snacks. So our chef comes in for lunch and for dinner and on say for brunch. So I'm like very cognizant of the costs of just about everything. And we keep really fastidious notes on every single penny that we spend, and we analyze it and all of that. So, from the business side, we have good business acumen, but on the creative side, we have that as well. So left and right brain work well together.
Exactly.
I love hearing that you rented another house next door, because one of my questions was about scale and size. I mean, your house has 4 bedrooms, and even with double occupancy, there's X number of people that you can accommodate. So how will you continue to scale that?
Well, first of all, I think Wendy and I are very aligned in terms of the size, what our optimal size of a retreat. And I would say 10 to 12 max is where we land, because we're 2 people, the hosts and the facilitators, and we don't want to bring in a third person. We did that. We did that the first 2 retreats. We had 3 of us, and we learned by doing that we like having it be the 2 of us. And so we, in the beginning, had a relationship with a local hotel that was 6 minutes away. And I won't get into the details of the house near us, but we, fortunately, after a long time of trying, got them to agree to rent to us. So it makes it nice because it's walking distance. Hopefully that'll last. We don't know. We can't count on that. We were successful when we had the hotel as well. People didn't mind staying there. And what we did, which I think was creative, was rather than feel like the people staying in the hotel were the outliers, we programmed an event at the hotel. So that one time we did a breakfast at the hotel, one time we did the slumber party, facial party in the evening at the hotel. So we have ways, I think we're very creative in terms of another thing that I think we're good at is designing the guest experience. And that comes from training and experience. So designing the guest experience is something that's getting talked about a lot now. And I think we excel at that as well.
And we have a platform that we use that really, it looks very professional. No one knows what's happening, like, behind the scenes. I mean, but we are very professional.
Very
But,
professional.
people see it, they click on, they can sign, and then we ask lots of questions. We ask about dietary, restrictions, and we ask very pointed questions. What are they looking to get out of the retreat? So we come, and then Sallie and I review everything. We really get to know someone before they even show up.
No, because that's not up to us. It's not it's not our job that they get out of it what they want. It's their job. So you create the conditions. So one of the things I've spent a fair amount of time in recent times is understanding what are the conditions for transformation. Mm-hmm. So there are actual conditions that you set up that can help create a transformative experience. But transformation or any kind of growth or any kind of what you get out of something is an inside job. Wendy and I create the conditions. We lay the groundwork. We talk to people. We manage expectations. They show up. The rest is on them. I mean, if what you're saying, not everybody's going to get the same thing out of something. And if someone doesn't get what they're looking for, I don't take that personally. I take that whatever it is that's their journey that they're on.
That's fair enough.
And we do give people the calendar. We give them, when we send out the invitations, many times we attach what the days will look like. Yeah,
always.
So people are not surprised. It says this, and then we ask them, does this theme, they may think to themselves, does this theme resonate with them? We're very clear as to what is going to be going on. I mean, there's lots of surprise and delight.
You can only be so clear. And quite honestly, I think to Lisa's point, when you go to a retreat, and I don't want to, sugarcoat this, when you're doing facilitated bits and they go deep, and I did say some of our things go a little bit deep. We don't force anyone to do anything. We encourage them. We give them a place. We try to create, a sense of safety, psychological safety. So, this is all part of the training of things that I've trained in. I won't speak for Wendy. I'll let her speak to her comfort level with what she's, trained in. But this is what happens when you go on a retreat. You only know so much. You look at an agenda, you talk to someone, you tell them what the feeling is like. But when they get there, you bring yourself with you wherever you go. So, some people are more engaged. What we have found is most people are engaged. Some people, are not quite as engaged as other people. The more retreats we do, the better we get at, we're very intuitive. We're very good at sensing and very good at managing these things. And honestly, we've learned some things along the way. We've had, in the earlier days, some things that I would do differently with guests, but now, it's not to say it won't happen again, but, this is what happens in hospitality and in retreats. And Wendy taught me the term, recovery. We haven't had to do a lot of guest recovery. That's more on the Airbnb side, but people are people. So, it's developing that confidence and that comfort, with holding the space for them.
So and, since people are people, let's talk about the people we haven't discussed, men.
I can't believe you're saying that, because Leo Tonkin is always asking me, can't you do a retreat for men? But, I think we've decided that we're doing women's retreats. I think it's women's time. And people, women are now really seeking community. And they also want to show up in a place, I think sometimes they have experience where everything's done for them. And I mentioned that before, how much we're always having to do. Here they show up, they can take a breath. And we take care of them, the entire time. So they just show up and all the details are taken care of. So,
So
So you don't.
I think men do, not only do I think men want that, I think they need it. But the way I would answer that question is it's not, I just like, I believe that the best men's retreats are led by men for men. I'm not saying that couldn't lead a men's retreat. I think I could. Would I want to? I will never say never. It doesn't feel like a comfortable thing for me right now at all. And nor do couples retreats. I'm drawn, like Wendy is, to holding retreats for women because it feels much more relatable. But working with Synergy, the retreat show, there, we get male retreat leaders in there, and it's very interesting because there is no doubt that men, it would be wonderful if many men felt as comfortable as many women feel going on retreat. It's just, it just doesn't feel like authentically for me who I am to host a man's retreat as me.
That's fair enough. And listen,
We
you
have
have
had a
had men.
male, excuse me, we have someone who rented the house, a male, to run a
Oh
male.
yeah. Yes, and we have another man who's hosting a retreat with his wife. But we have
Jason.
had people rent the house. Exactly. One was a yes. One I don't know that his retreat was for all men, Raji's, and I don't know that
I
Jason's
thought
is
it
for all
was.
men. No, I don't think
No?
so. I'm not sure. I'll check it. But we have had two male retreat leaders. I'm just not sure that they were all male retreats. But it's because the new one, the person who's doing it in November, is hosting it with his wife. So I'm not sure if that one's. I think that one will be male and female.
Listen, it's fair enough. You own the property, you own the business, you get to choose what you do, and that's
Look,
a
if a
lot
group
there.
of men came to us and said, we'd really like you to host a retreat for us, I probably would say yes. But do I want to go out and start marketing to men? That just doesn't feel, that authentic to me. Like,
So,
how am I qualified to,
mhm,
really
well,
deal so deeply with men's issues?
right. No, you're
You're married
absolutely
for
right.
40 some odd years, Sally.
Yes, I guess so. So I can manage one man, or maybe he can manage me. What do we see? What do I see globally with people looking for retreats? I think it's more and more segmentation. More of these specialty type retreats, whether it be menopause retreats. And quite honestly, I'm so tired of hearing about menopause. Like you would think it never existed, but it's having a very big moment. And lots of menopause retreats, lots of conscious leadership retreats. That's really also having a very big moment. Spiritual retreats are a category that has always been around. And it's funny because you hear less about spiritual retreats, even though I would say that might be the root of retreat, is in the spiritual realm of silent meditation retreats and, other kinds of spiritually oriented retreats. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, first of all, when people hear the word retreat, many times I'm talking to someone, the first thing they say to me, oh, you're doing a yoga retreat.
Well,
Everyone
that's right.
always thinks we're doing a yoga retreat. So I always say, we will have about an hour's worth of yoga, and we always do something very different and fun. But then I have to educate them because a lot of women who come to us, they don't even know, like, they're not like, what is a retreat really? And then I explain to them what's going to happen. They're like, wow, that sounds amazing. But I think, to Sally's point, the segmentation is really what's happening. There's a lot of growth and interest. And at Synergy, the retreat show, it touches upon all of that. We get retreat leaders from all over that share their experiences and their expertise. And yeah, there's a lot going on. I mean, it proves itself.
The equine retreats are kind of cool. I like so that's kind of a neat category. There was a guy last year who was doing like this very fascinating martial arts meets personal development type of retreat, like a very specific use of martial art and the metaphor from it, very creative. We're saying there's just a lot of very interesting urban retreats, which you're going to hear more and more about. And, Wendy and I are even thinking about, I don't know if you would call it an urban retreat, but where we were just talking yesterday about doing a day retreat versus, overnight retreats. So yeah,
Silent
I think
retreats have become, again, more people are talking about silent. We went out for dinner last night with a friend, and she said, I'm going on a silent retreat. And I was a little surprised that she said that. But yeah, I think there's so much opportunity and growth. And Laura Montesanti, who founded Synergy, the retreat show, has a great vision. And the show now will be in its fourth year. We'll be in Sardinia in October. And the numbers, prove themselves because it's growing. There's an interest. There's more retreat leaders that we attract, more properties out there that want to have people come, and more luxury travel designers that have clients that want to go on retreats. So we're the only wellness travel show out there. And this is not a pitch for synergy, but I think that shows, where the industry is going, where the trends are. And I do have to tell you one thing. This is like really funny. And Sallie, I've shared this with you. So growing up, I had a nickname, and my nickname was Bird. And my family still calls me that. And it's just so funny because it just like plays with that whole bird theme.
Amazing. You've come full circle.
I have.
Well, thank you both for sharing with us your amazing story. Redbird sounds great. I've heard nothing but great things from people I know that have gone, and we look forward to seeing how it grows in the future. And good for you for bringing this vision to life in COVID, not really knowing, never having done that. Being brave seems to have paid off. So kudos to both of you.
Thank you.
And Lisa, I hope you'll come. Wendy and I both hope you'll come to one of our retreats one day. So
I would
maybe
love
you'll
to
mark your
join you.
calendar for next June 5th through 7th.
Okay,
So we
that
just
would be
decided
good to know.
dates for 2026 spring.
Yes, we want you to be part of this growing community, Lisa.
Thank you. Again, Wendy Bosalavage, Sallie Fraenkel, Redbird House. Look it up online and hopefully see you at a retreat there sometime soon.
It's redbirdhouseny.com. Okay.
Bye.
Take care, Lisa. Bye. Thank you.